Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Accommodation Show. This week, I'm joined by the incredible Andrea Comastri from Hotel Etico. Hotel Etico is a business that you want to know about because they set up a few years ago, brand new, through the most challenging setup that you've ever heard of or seen. We talk about them setting up their business, what they're all about, and also there's so many learnings that you're going to take away that you can apply into your business. Now, folks, before I let you see the episode, please make sure that you like and you subscribe to the channel because it makes a massive difference to us. Hit that button below and I'll let us get into it. And hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Accommodation Show. This week we're bringing you a fascinating episode with the lovely, the wonderful Andrea Comastri. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bart, and great to be here.
I've been looking forward to this one because we met I don't know which town, it might be Tamworth, but you'll have to correct
Yes,
me on that. But we met
correct.
on the road with Destination New South Wales, the Employer of Choice program, and we shared a few drinks, maybe a few too many drinks. We shared some laughter. We shared some very good stories. And I was super enthralled by your business, by what you and your team are doing, and also it's the team that you guys have got together at Hotel Etico. They're incredible in terms of their personalities, great leaders, but you've really assembled a crack team of people around you. So I'm excited to talk to everyone about what you guys do. But Andrea, how are you going? I know that you just said that you've been traveling across the world.
Yes, I've just come off the plane a few hours ago, actually, from a round the world trip, literally, that took me to Europe, to different countries in Europe, and France, Italy, Spain, then the US, Panama, and then back to Australia. Studying and experiencing different organizations, different businesses that work in the hospitality space, but that have a focus on disability, because that's what we are. So we are Australia's first not-for-profit social enterprise hotel. We employ young people with disability, the age between 18 and 35. We employ them in the business and train them in the hospitality business, but also in independent living. So they live on site with us. And at the end of a 12-month, very intensive training and employment program through which they're paid full award wages from day one. There's not one day of non being paid. They are then supported in finding ongoing employment in the hospitality and tourism industry.
Yeah,
That's who
look,
we are.
uh, look, the story of Hotel Etico is quite interesting. It's incredible, actually, and it's one of those things where I can imagine that for you, when you can get up in the morning every day and feel that you're making a huge impact for individuals, for society as a whole. So you've
Absolutely.
got that sort of whole thing, which is incredibly important. Before we do go forward, though, because you said that you just got off a plane, and this is one thing that I want you to share with everybody, is you said, "Hey, Bart, I've got the best app for jet lag." Can you tell everybody about
Yes.
that?
It's been a game changer, actually. I was put onto it by a friend, and it's called Time Shifter. And basically, you plug in all your flights, where you're going, and based on the different time zone, it recommends what to do to the point of when to look at light, when not to look at light, when to use sunglasses, when to use melatonin, when to sleep, when not to sleep, when to use caffeine, when not to use caffeine. And literally, I've traveled 47,000 kilometers, 11 different cities, 3 different continents. I've not had 1 minute of jet lag. It's been a game changer. So I highly recommend it to everyone. And I've followed it like 80 to 90% because sometimes it's a little bit tricky. But yeah, it worked a treat. So Time Shifter, highly recommend it.
And yeah, look, that put a smile on my face because quite often I do chats with everybody before we get recording, and all the value kind of seems to be at that part. It's like, oh, I've got these cool apps, and this and this and this is happening. Then we start recording, it changes. So I wanted to get that everyone to everyone. Time shifter. I'm gonna be trying it out on my next travels. You can see how effective it is because Andrea's literally just got off a bunch of flights and ready to go. So thank you for that. Now, Hotel Etico, can you tell me a little bit
Yes.
about? I mean, the why I want to talk about in a second, but I want to talk about the history of it because you folks are running in Australia. I do know that you're around the world. Can you tell me about a bit about the inception?
Yes, yes. The model was actually born in Italy, like me. The model was born 10 years ago in northern Italy. And it started in a small town in northern Italy called Asti from a young man with Down syndrome. His name is Niccolò. He approached a chef asking for a job opportunity. And then the love story started. And Niccolò's dream was to actually work in a hotel. And the very creative and visionary people that sort of joined him gave him that opportunity. So the first hotel was born, and now they're up to 5 hotels around the country. There's one in Albania, one in South America, in Argentina, and there's more coming along the way. And we are the first one in Australia. So a few years ago, 6 or 7 years ago, I really serendipitously met with the founders of the Italian model in Australia. I was working in philanthropy myself. I was running a foundation after a 25-year career in the charity space, in the not-for-profit and human services space. And I loved the model. I fell in love with it and I said, I'm going to do it. I'm going to be your man in Australia. And then the rest is history. We started working on it. Lots and lots of hard work. Initially was a nighttime job, not a day job, because I did it as a volunteer for a number of years. And then finally in 2020, right in the thick of COVID, we made the brave decision of opening the hotel, which is a boutique hotel in the Blue Mountains. And for those that know Australia, it's about an hour and a half west of Sydney in a beautiful heritage and natural park history area. And it's a boutique hotel, 15 rooms, restaurant, bar, event spaces, live music every Friday night, and we run it as a social enterprise. And so we are a charity, a registered charity, but we run it as a business. And we employ 15 young men and women with disability, and they live on site with us. And so far, after 3 years, every single person that has worked with us not only has completed the program, but they've also then secured ongoing employment with the tourism and hospitality industry that we partner very closely with. And it's a transformative type of program, not just for the individuals, because you referred to the why. The why is that in Australia, one in five people has a disability, and yet
Mm.
Australia only ranks 21st out of 29 OECD countries for labor force participation of people with disability. The unemployment rate for people with disability is double that of people without a disability, and that is not acceptable. There's not only a great desire to work for a lot of people with disability, but there's also lots of abilities and lots of skills. They just need a little bit of support to untap them, and then the results. In Australia we say the proof is in the pudding. Really, the results are there with people securing jobs, and we're working not just at the individual level and transforming their lives, but we work at industry level. So I think the great
Yeah.
traction that we're getting with large brands of hotels around the country is because they can see the value that we create. And we've really, uh, really happy with the enthusiastic approach that the industry is taking to what we're trying to do. And it works. So that's
And a large part of that is education as well, right? Not only
absolutely.
within your own business, but educating people like myself, and
Yeah, no, every
educating
single
the general
guest,
public as well.
Yes, every single guest that walks through the door of the hotel is transformed in their perception of people with disability, because they experience disability in a setting that people are not normally used to. Working, like our trainees are front and center in the business. They work in reception, they work in the kitchen, they work in the restaurant floor, they work in the bar, they work in housekeeping, they do gardening, maintenance. So they're visible throughout the entire business. So they're in your face as soon as you walk through the door. And it's enough to spend a few hours at the hotel and the disability just melts away. And so if you have the wrong idea about what a person with disability can or cannot do, that wrong idea gets completely transformed. And so I still have to meet a person that has walked through the door that hasn't become an ambassador of the message that we're trying to communicate to the wider world. And then obviously, as I said, the industry, because if we can eliminate the barriers out there, like our job becomes so much easier. And so if the doors gets opened by employers, and they become more capable and more confident in their dealing with disability, then the mission is accomplished.
100%, 100%. Look, I kind of, there's so many questions that I have in so many different ways. One of them, which I'm going to come back to in a second, I'm putting this as a little marker here, is the marketing side of the business, where you talk about a boutique accommodation, but also the experience of staying in a place where you're being looked after by people with disabilities. And I kind of want to talk about that kind of messaging as well. But before we do, there's two things I want to cover off, which I think are really important, which I think everyone is going to learn from a lot. Is one is the program, and that's I want to talk to you about what that program looks like, and then I also want to talk about those challenges of setting up the business,
Mm-hmm.
because obviously you've got this program that you built into everything, and then you've got to also find the hotel. You need to run it at a profit if it is like is a normal business and that sort of thing. So if we
Yes.
talk about the program, and if we can kind of merge into those, setting up a new hotel, I mean, it's not easy. And from what you said, it doesn't even sound like you had the skill set like to start
Correct,
off with to
correct. I
open your first
definitely had
hotel.
no idea about accommodation, no idea about food and beverage, no idea about the tourism industry. I just knew how to set up a new business, and I knew how to work within a very complex setting with multiple stakeholders. I think that's my wheelhouse. That's what I do really well. And pushing the envelope in an entrepreneurial approach. So I refer internally to an approach which sometimes makes my people uncomfortable, which is ready, fire, aim, rather than ready, aim, fire. So, like, you don't need to be perfect. Just take a shot when you're sort of ready, and then you can adjust, and then you can improve. And it's a very brave type of approach, but that allows you to take steps that otherwise you would never take. Because we've created a program that is very complex, and it's a complexity that is necessary to achieve the results. So the trainees start with us after a fairly intense and detailed selection process. They need to want to work. It's not just a program. It's not just an activity. They need to want to work and have a career in hospitality. So that's critical. And then for the first 3 months, they work across the entire business. So they do all of the areas that I've mentioned before, and they get a little bit of training on everything. They get a taste for everything. And then we ask them within the first 3 months to pick an elective area of their choice. And then for the following 9 months, they specialize in that area in terms of training. So there's more attention put to that in terms of work shifts as well. So that at the end of the program, they can, together with them, we can identify what is the best venue where they can go back and work, and where we can find jobs for them. And so there's a lot of support. The support is provided by both disability professional and hospitality professional. There's a lot of overlapping of those two cultures, and that's a success. You refer to how good our people are. We definitely, the reason why we're successful is because we have assembled an amazing team of people that share the vision, and culture is critical, and we've had a lot of turnover over the first couple of years because you need to find the right people. And we haven't necessarily let go of people, just people have dropped off if they realize that it wasn't their place, because you need a special person to navigate in this very tricky environment where there's customer service focus, but also service recipient focus, like in terms of the trainee. And so there's this very fine tension and fine line that we need to navigate. And so, in terms of the marketing that you were referring to, for example, we're very careful.
I like that you've managed to wrap up all three questions in one answer. You're amazing.
Yeah. So, like, we're very careful at not promoting ourselves as a charity place where people need to come just to do a favor or to feel good about themselves, and that's about it, and then don't come again. We've focused very strongly on you want to come to us because the beds are comfortable, the rooms are good, the atmosphere is great, the music's great, the food is great, and on top of that, there's the great social value that you're creating and the transformation that you are experiencing. And that's the beautiful thing about our social enterprise is that it's not just about buying a product or a service, but you actually live it because you're there. So you become part of that change. And that's really transformational from values point of view. And you can't beat that, and so we don't hide the fact that we're a training hotel, that we're a disability provider, but that sort of comes after to some extent. The main thing is that it needs to be a quality product because we want repeat business, and we are getting a lot of repeat business, which is fantastic.
Yeah, and so let's stick with the marketing for a second, and then we're going to switch back to the setting up of the place. Um, on the marketing front, one of the things that you may have seen when I was presenting, but I talked briefly about avatars or kind of
Mm-hmm.
customer personalities, or uh, when you put your marketing hat on for this particular business, is there a particular type of avatar or demographic that is, I mean, that would be the most popular, and who
Yeah.
would you say that is?
Yeah, we definitely have a wide range of guests, but we talk about the social consumer, the social spender, right? The one with the conscious consumerism values front and center. So we have a lot of couples, mature couples. We're not necessarily marketing or targeting, the young groups of people that are going for a weekend away to have a lot of fun. We have couples, lots of families, and increasingly families with maybe children with a disability because they want to show them what the world
Ah,
looks like for
sure,
them,
sure.
the positive
Yeah.
world looks like of them. We have a lot of corporates, a lot of groups, a lot of clubs, a lot of associations, whether it be religious groups, whether they be special interest groups, whether they are associations, disability organizations. So there's a lot of that we target. But from an individual point of view, is disposable income, 30 to 60 years of age, often generally couples, and at times, quite often families with children. We have a few family rooms, and it's a really nice environment. Lots of different nooks and crannies, games rooms, TV room, meeting rooms. There's a library, there's a beautiful bar, there's live music. So it caters for a lot of different needs, but there's a nice, friendly family atmosphere. That's the type of message that we're trying to promote. And with no marketing, we don't even have a marketing line in our budget, to be honest.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's eventually we will need to, obviously, but it's been the
Well,
marketing
yeah,
for us is done
yeah,
by the stories. We've got so many
yeah.
stories.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting one because when we talk about setting up a business, right? So marketing is such a huge part of what we have to do, right? And it doesn't matter how you market, right? You still need to market yourself. People need to know about what you're doing. So for you, you're doing interviews. I've seen many interviews or with you guys, and you're out talking to people about your mission and what you're doing. But as you get to scale, then I think that you can't just rely on the same source of income and revenue. You need to have a product which is going to differentiate itself and really um, solve people's problems. Like, I
Yes.
need to get away for a weekend, I'm exhausted, blah, what should I pick, what should I choose, right? Not just because it's sustainable. Like, I've got there was a business called Lentil is Anything. I don't know if you've
Yes.
heard of
Yes.
them.
Yep.
Yeah, so they had a place in Abbotsford here in Melbourne, and they branched out, and it was fantastic. They did great food, they had a great atmosphere, great staff. It was a social enterprise as well. Um, the reason why I went was because the food was really good, right? Like, I
Yes. No.
didn't
No. You.
really
You.
care about
You can't
so much.
do. Absolutely. You can't do what we do without the product being good. It's just that's an essential requirement that we can't do without. So, and that's critical because, I mean, again, as I said, we've made our model so much more complex than a normal 15-room boutique hotel would normally be. There's a lot of touch points. There's a lot of interaction with the guests from our staff, from our trainees, from there's a lot of conversations, but that's what we want to create. We create the memories, we create those experiences, but the food needs to be good. I mean, it's very easy nowadays to put a review out there and say how bad a place was, and so we know very well that the product needs to be perfect, and we strive for perfection all the time and improvement all the time. So I totally agree with that.
Yeah. um, let's talk about challenges.
Mm-hmm.
Setting up a business is challenging regardless. um, Setting up what you're doing, and one of the key words that I took from before was multiple stakeholders.
Yes, yes,
And I think that's a really key part of the challenge piece, because tell me about
yeah,
those
yeah.
different stakeholders
Yeah,
within
it's
your
it's not
business.
just the
And
single two-way transaction between a guest and us. There's the trainees, there's the staff, there's the funders because we're partially still funded by donations or philanthropy or fundraising. There's the employers, there's the community in general, there's the local community that we need to engage with because they use our restaurant as a normal local restaurant, as their pub, their bar, um, government. So that there's so many different layers and the messaging needs to be modulated depending on who the stakeholder is, but still keep it on the same tune. So that's where I said I'm good at in a way, and we've been good at sort of assembling that type of story. But that is definitely a challenging but exciting part of the business. The other major challenge has been twofold. One is a 15-room hotel, your audience would know that it's really, really hard to make it work, especially once you put on top a layer of staffing that is much bigger than you would normally run a small 15-room hotel with. And so
yeah,
we
rather than just mum and dad and a
Correct,
few
correct,
cleaners, right, and a
exactly.
receptionist. Yeah.
So we then need to find other revenue sources to be able to support the training program, which we do through the National Disability Insurance Scheme. And that's in a way, a competitive advantage for us on someone else that runs a similar hotel. Then the other thing is that being effectively semi-regional as a hotel, the pool of people in terms of attracting staff is limited compared to what you would have in a city setting. So while the property might be cheaper to run or more attractive because it's a getaway, finding the right people and retaining them in a more regional environment, it's hard. And so that's been definitely a challenge for us. We've been very good and lucky at attracting a lot of people. So it's interesting that now people reach out to us even before we advertise a role
Mm.
because they see the story. We're a very attractive proposition, but it's not for everyone. Because the internal challenges and dynamics and tensions and model are completely different from any other hotel that you can find in any other disability provider. It's really hard for people to box us in. They want to box us into what we are. We're not a school. We're not a hotel. We're not a restaurant. We're not a disability provider. We nothing of that. which is this new thing that we've created, and that's exciting. I just like that innovation element to it. It's what gets me up every day, as you referred before, to be happy every day. There's happy tears every day and warm heart every day by reading the feedback that we get from the guests, the feedback that we get from the parents, from the families, and just seeing the transformation on the skills of people with disability that we train.
Yeah, that's fascinating, and I don't know why, but in my mind, for some reason, I hadn't even thought about the challenges in terms of scale and profitability. Right, like you to run such a large program, you just wouldn't be able to do it just from the room nights alone, and
No.
then even from the pub or from a restaurant, yeah, the margins are so razor thin. And as well, you might have additional costs. Just on the challenge front, I think one of the unique opportunities I have here by talking to you is that by nature you folks have chosen to go down a much more challenging and unique path, um, which is great, and a lot of people would have it a lot easier in many ways, but there's also opportunities which we'll talk about in a second. On a more personal level, how do you manage that, like in building something like you're trying to do? How do you manage like that level of challenge, um, to make sure that you're okay yourself and you can
Mm.
keep leading what you're doing?
Yeah, it's very easy to blur the lines between private life and work. I think in the industry in general, but with something so infectious as our model, it's really, really hard to separate and not to burn out.
Mm.
So I know the theory. Then whether I apply the practice is a different question, but I definitely know the theory of the fact that I need to be able to separate that. But like I think it was JFK that said, we don't go to the moon. We don't choose to go to the moon because it's easy, right? We choose to go to the moon because it's hard. And we know what the challenge is in terms of creating employment opportunities for people with disability. We know it's hard, but that's why we do it. And that's what gets me up in the morning. I love it. I enjoy the difficulties. Sometimes I enjoy it less than others, but the results are there. And as long as you've got the right people around you that are in line and aligned with you, with your values, and it's all about values and culture, then you know that you will
let's
succeed.
let's 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 unpack that a little bit more. Values, culture, alignment, is something that you mentioned, having the vision and that sort of thing. Which comes first? How do we test people, or how do we know whether we're,
Yes,
we're, we're going
yes.
in the right direction?
Well, I mean, I'm not claiming that we got it right all the time, because sometimes we got it wrong in terms of the people we chose, or how the people chose us. But I make sure that I am involved in the recruitment of people for every single position, regardless of their role. So in the first day on the job, I meet with them and I go through the vision, I go through the values, I go through the language that we use. I know through the approaches that we use, the what it looks like, and I encourage them to sort of walk the talk in a way. And I think that's critical. But I mean, that needs to be done in a bit of a broken record type of thing, because then the day to day takes over. And so it's important to keep reminding people with visuals, with stories. Stories are very important. But we've got walking stories every day amongst our trainees. And you can go and ask every single employee in our staff how much they love seeing the transformation and how much they hate seeing them leave, because we're a pathway to further employment. So after 12 months, each trainee graduates and leaves, and that's such an emotional part of the journey. Um, and so, yeah, it's about repeating the stories, getting them early on, and it's about sharing and also walking the talk. Yourself. You need to be there, roll your sleeves up, and be involved in all sorts of parts of the business. And I hope I do it. We would have to do a podcast with all the employees and ask them, but I
Yeah,
think I
we just
think the
line
results are
line
showing.
everybody up. Yeah. Look, and I think that that's something which is very telling. I've been around the block a few times, and I'm pretty quick to spot the genuine ones from the non genuine ones in terms of you can tell if somebody's talking the talk but not really believing it or walking the walk. It's just it's so plain, like so obvious.
Mm,
It's you're like, oh my god, you're saying one thing to me, but I can tell by your body language and how you're acting, it's completely different. I think with you, it is that. And I think that's interesting as well that you've embodied that in terms of those conversations that you're having with people. It's like, well, the way that I train and the way that I get people up to speed is by them kind of seeing everything that's coming off of me and reinforcing that. And once again, it'll be interesting as well to see how you keep that going as you scale and how you keep that
mm,
message going, to make sure that everybody still feels that same sense of pace and that sense of community as you are growing. But look, I want to keep moving forward a little bit. So I do apologize because I think we could keep it unpacking that a bit more. But I'm conscious of time. I want to make sure that we get everything I can out of you, so that people can learn and apply some of these rules to their own business. In terms of some of the opportunities that you've seen, both as a, I think from three sides, I'd love it if you could tackle it. So one, from I guess the employee side, the community side. Then I'd love to know about the business opportunities. Probably that's the one I'd love to focus on more, and maybe even personal if you want to.
yeah, well, so so the first part, I'm not too sure what you sort of trying to get to, but I mean, one of the challenges and opportunities for us is scale. So we've decided that for us to be successful and sustainable, we need to scale. And so our vision is to basically be present in every state and territory around the country, and replicate the model, scale the model with different hotels. And we're actively working on that as we speak. We've created a structure that needs that, and needs that sort of scaling and those economies of scale to succeed. But that's a challenge because while we need to still focus on the local business, our
Mm,
heads are somewhere else and our bodies are somewhere else to some extent. And so
sure.
that's the difficulty. I mean, as a CEO and as a founder, um, my mind is always like 5, 10 years down the road. And so the risk is that of losing the people and not having the people coming along with you. So there's a difficulty there of keeping your feet on the ground, but your head still dreaming. And so that's a challenge and opportunity, I suppose. Um, I also think that our success and there's very early, very good, strong signs is defined by how much the industry welcomes us and embraces us. And we've been very good at engaging with large brands and large hotels and big management companies.
Yeah.
And so, if we can keep unlocking that, that's an amazing opportunity of transforming the industry because we will remove the barriers to start with, and so they might not even need us to train people because they can do it by themselves. We're doing the hard job at the moment for them, but we are getting a lot of traction in that. So I hope that answers your questions in terms of the opportunities and where we're going.
Yeah, I 100%, 100%. I think there's other elements that we could kind of delve into, but I think that that's good. And I think for me, uh, if I always try to take a lot of these learnings and then try to zoom back out and then try to go, well, how do people apply this into their own lives and into their own businesses, right? Because it's great to hear where you guys have got stuff, but how do we do the same thing in our businesses? And if we think about those opportunities, it's actually looking at your own business and thinking a bit laterally about it and how can we approach other bigger organizations or other organizations to collaborate or lean into our strengths, right? And that's what you guys are doing. You're saying these are our strengths. Where can we go and collaborate with other businesses to like corporates or whatever, to help you guys back in turn? So I really love that. And I love the idea as well of changing the industry.
Mm,
There's quite a few people that I know and that I've talked to that are philosophically super aligned with you, Hotel Etico. They might not be running a social enterprise, but yet their business values are very, very
yeah.
well aligned. Uh, staff, employees, looking after them, looking after your suppliers.
Yep.
Right? People don't even talk about that. Look after them, look after the local community. Those sorts of things which are critical, because if we're not looking after these things, then why are we doing what we're doing to start off with?
Absolutely. I mean,
Now, you go.
it's evident in our employment partners that end up employing our graduates how having employees with a disability within their teams is very quickly changing their culture internally. It's showing their staff that an inclusive work environment is more successful than an exclusive work environment, not just from the staffing point of view, but from a guest point of view. There's lots, think about it in a very pragmatic way from a business point of view. There's lots of people with disability that like to travel. And if they can see that an accommodation provider employs people with disability, I can guarantee to you they are more inclined to come and stay with you.
Yeah, beautiful. Look, Andrea, I just want to finish off with uh, top 3 tips for other accommodation providers of maybe things that they could apply within their business.
Yeah, well, I mean, one thing, maybe a little bit sort of high level, is that lead with authenticity and with vision, because I think uh, that really is what people value. So be authentic. Don't be something that you're not. And work really hard. Work your butt off. Innovate. Never rest on something. One of the saying that I hate: if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like, if it ain't broke, improve it. So there's always something that you can do to improve. I'm a great advocate for continuous improvement. So I always think, how can we do this better? So that's another very important value for me. So authenticity, continuous improvement, and then you need to innovate and have a model that works. So it's not easy, and don't take no for an answer. Just keep going, keep asking, keep. I find it really hard to take no for an answer from people when I'm
I
convinced that
love it.
I've got something in my hands that is successful.
Yeah. Look, blown away by this interview. It's such a pleasure to have you guys doing what you're doing. I think foremost, uh, it's exciting. I remember there's a lady called Kerry Williams who's built a business around accessible accommodation, and
Accessible.
I
Yeah.
interviewed her
Yeah.
many years ago, and I just the simplicity of it all. I just, when the penny drops, you're like, oh my god, how did we miss all of this? And it's fascinating as well when people kindly figure it out. Most people don't. They figure out, they go, oh my god, there's this whole thing that I'm missing out on. So real privilege to be able to talk to you and to get you on, and I'm very excited to follow your journey into the future, and that of you, the business, and all of your colleagues that are working in it as well. Now, folks, I'm going to wrap up there. So if you are watching this on YouTube, make sure you give us a like and a subscribe. I know I keep on asking, but surprisingly, 88% of you are still not subscribed if you're watching. So it's really simple. Just hit that subscribe button. And what that means, we've got one more subscriber, and we're more likely to grow the channel and get more fantastic guests like Andrea onto the show. If you're listening on the podcast, jump into giving us a review. That does make a huge difference for us as well. Andrea, thank you so much. Wishing you a fantastic rest of the day. If you folks want to check out Hotel Etico, the links will be in the bio. Is there any other way that people can reach out to you?
Any social media channel: LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and then obviously, yes, our website, hoteletico.com.au. But I'm sure you'll provide all that.
Beautiful. All right, thank you. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you. Thanks, Bart. Bye, everyone.